You blink and the sea foam of Korea fades into the swirling incense of Tang Dynasty China. The year is somewhere around 760 CE, and the empire hums like a well-oiled scroll press. Bureaucrats shuffle papers with such precision it could lull a tiger to sleep. And somewhere in all this efficient humdrum lives a young prince with the heaviest of expectations resting gently on his shoulders. His name is Li Xian. But you may know him by his more poetic title, Emperor Zhongzong. He's the son of the formidable Empress Wu Zetian, the only woman to ever officially rule China in her own name. Being her son was like being asked to hold a paper lantern during a windstorm. His job? Shine without flickering, or upstaging his mother. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. Zhongzong technically ruled not once, but twice. His first reign was shorter than a tea ceremony interrupted by a rooster. Wu Zetian, unimpressed with his early attempts, politely, and by politely, we mean with great imperial flair, told him to sit down and think about what he'd done. So, he was demoted, then quietly shuffled away from politics. And here's where things get strangely soothing. While some exiled royals might throw tantrums or plot revenge novels, Zhongzong is said to have turned inward. He studied Buddhist texts, practiced calligraphy with deliberate, glacial slowness, and spent long afternoons in contemplative silence. He lived like someone trying to erase the very concept of ambition from his bones. Historians still argue whether Zhongzong truly embraced spiritual withdrawal or simply bided his time like a cat behind a curtain. But what remains clear is this: his time in obscurity transformed him. When he returned to the throne years later, his reign was more measured, even, dare we say it, sleepy. His palace, in contrast to the usual clamor of court life, often echoed with soft footsteps and the occasional cough of a reciting monk. And it wasn't uncommon for imperial banquets to end early, not because of palace intrigue, but because the emperor genuinely enjoyed early bedtimes. Imagine a royal who's more excited about warm slippers than war strategy. This was also a period where Tang aristocrats were embracing Daoist principles like quietude and breath control. Some even believed that deep breathing could prevent aging, so if you're sighing gently right now, congratulations, you're on the path to eternal youth. Let's not skip this delightful footnote. Zhongzong's wife, Empress Wei, reportedly tried to rule from behind the curtain just like Wu Zetian. But she lacked her mother-in-law's finesse. Still, their household became an almost comedic echo of its predecessor, like a play where the second act repeats the first, but with gentler lines and more naps. You walk slowly down the palace corridors now, lantern in hand, your slippers padding across lacquered floors. The walls are painted in delicate ink strokes, cranes, waterfalls, and the occasional immortal drifting lazily on a cloud. This is a court not of daggers, but of incense sticks. Of debates not shouted, but mumbled. Even the palace cats seem meditative, curled, blinking slowly, occasionally licking a paw with monastic focus. It's no wonder that during Zhongzong's reign, poetry flourished. Gentle, rhythmic, often about the moon. Because when politics take a nap, art wakes up and stretches its arms. So, you sit beside the emperor now, metaphorically, of course, watching the candle flicker. He's writing a poem about a peach blossom falling into a pond. He pauses, tilts his head, and decides that's enough governance for today. And you, lulled by the quiet power of a forgotten emperor who briefly ruled by doing very little, start to feel the edges of sleep press softly against your temples. You find yourself now in a misty valley of green hills, where bamboo rustles gently in the wind, and the roofs of old Zen temples pierce through layers of mountain fog like wooden whispers. This is Japan again, centuries after Shmu, but the spirit of silent rulers still lingers. Tonight, you drift into the quiet world of Emperor Kazan. Born in the late 10th century, Kazan wasn't your typical power-hungry sovereign. He was emperor in name but poet in soul, like a kid who inherits a kingdom but secretly just wants to write haiku under plum trees. He ruled for just a few short years, less time than it takes for a bonsai to fully mature. And then? He left it all behind. Gave up the throne, shaved his head, and entered a monastery. Now picture this, you, trailing behind a small procession of monks, sandals soft against moss-covered stones. Kazan, once robed in silks embroidered with phoenixes, now walks quietly in plain brown linen, humming sutras under his breath. He was just 20-something when he said goodbye to the throne. It was like watching someone log off social media permanently and go live in a cabin without Wi-Fi, 1,000 years before that was trendy. Historians still argue whether Kazan was forced out due to palace intrigue or whether he genuinely longed for a life of stillness and prayer. There's a rumor, fringy but fun, that a group of power-hungry nobles staged a fake ghost sighting to spook him into thinking he was cursed if he stayed. Imagine a haunted palace episode featuring eerie incense and overly dramatic moaning, 10th century edition. Whatever the truth, Kazan didn't resist. He went full monk mode, founding his own temple near Kyoto, called Gangaji. It wasn't the quiet retirement of a recluse, though. He took his new life seriously, meditating for hours, eating modestly, and writing verses that read like tiny lullabies. One of his poems, softly translated, goes something like, "In this fleeting world, even the voice of the cuckoo fades behind the fog." Yeah. That's an emperor talking. As you imagine Kazan sitting beneath a moonlit tree, ink brush in hand, it's easy to forget this man once commanded armies and scribes. Power was something he wore only briefly, like a heavy coat taken off at the door of a temple. And get this, he wasn't the only emperor to do it. He actually inspired a kind of trend among Japanese royalty. Over the next few centuries, a surprising number of emperors followed his lead, stepping down to become monks, wandering the misty paths of Zen gardens, trading crowns for prayer beads. The court chroniclers began to joke, quietly, respectfully, that the best way to keep your head in Kyoto was to shave it and leave voluntarily. So here you are, sitting cross-legged beside Kazan as he murmurs chants into the dawn mist. His breaths are slow and deep. No proclamations. No edicts. Just the sound of wind through cedar branches and the occasional snore from an elderly monk 3 mats away. If you're feeling unusually calm right now, that's just the Kazan effect. And if you fall asleep before we move on, well, he'd probably nod in approval.